Hi there, this is Stan Holt. I am the Senior Advisor at Partners for Impact, and this is another installment in our series on logic models. And this time around, we're going to talk a lot about two kind of the categories is our activities and our outputs. And remember, these are 5 to 7 minute training videos that help you build and use logic models for program planning and evaluation. And just a reminder that a logic model is this graphic picture of what it takes to create a program, what you do, and the outcomes that you achieve, and eventually the community impact that you make. So, if you recall, when we were talking about the first time our first session was about how logic models are like baking cookies, and the activities and outputs are the things that we do and the number of cookies that we create, right? So, it's the things we do and the actual number of things that we create. And activities oftentimes in logic models are the what you do. You'll see anything from education activities to treatments of any kind or interventions of any kind. I'm working with an organization right now on putting together their street outreach program, putting together a grant for them. And one of their biggest activities is here's where we're going to be, here's how often we're going to be there. For example, they're going to be at the public library. They'll be there from 6 to 8 p.m. to engage with youth who might be hanging out at the public library. They'll be at the Oak City Cares, which is the kind of day services site in Wake County. They have certain hours that they'll be here. So those are the activities, right? And it's real important to begin to think about activities and quantify those activities because we oftentimes, we'll put down, training. Well, we need to think about what that training is because we need to make sure that we know what the amount is. It's kind of like um, the dose of a treatment, right? 250 milligrams of Tylenol, 500 milligrams of Tylenol. Well, you've got 4 hours of training and 40 hours of training. And both of those are different. And it's real important to put that in there because that also impacts the inputs and the budget, right? So the activities are what you do, and then the output of what is completed. And I think it's real important just to pretty much remind you that it's almost always a count of what was done. In our cooking example, it's the number of cookies. In our street outreach example, it is the number of youth that are reached on the street in a given month, right? Number of contacts made. The other thing that you'll see are things like the pounds of food that are distributed, right? So they're just counts. I also want to begin to integrate this concept of a double layer logic model. And it's kind of interesting, right? So it's when inputs actually need their own set of activities and outputs. And a really good example are things like volunteers in a tutoring program or employers in an internship program, right? You need those as inputs. You need volunteers as inputs to the tutoring program. But they have their own activities and outputs for themselves. For example, if you've got, you're going to need staff time, you're going to need recruitment material. And then the activities, you're going to screen the volunteers, you're going to train the volunteers, you're going to manage the volunteers, right? You're going to do all those pieces. And then ultimately your output is is the number of volunteer hours. So again, when we start looking at logic models, we need to start thinking about the ways in which our programs really, again, I call it a double layer logic model because some of those inputs that you need have their own associated activities and outputs that go with them. So that's the quick tutorial on activities and outputs. And If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at stan@partnersforimpact.com. Thanks.